to the OnStage Colorado Podcast for April 15th, Tax Day. I'm Alex Miller.
And I'm Toni Tresca, and this week on the pod, we hope to offer you a distraction from all the tax-related noise out there. And we've got a very special guest joining us on the show to help do that. We are joined by Betty Hart. How's it going, Betty?
Hey, good morning, guys. It's great to be here. I just came on a run from seeing 9 shows, so I'm on a pretty big theater high.
All right. You're a perfect guest.
Person to talk to.
Yeah. So Betty, you are the president of the Colorado Theater Guild, the co-artistic director at local theater company in Boulder. And this is the 5th time you've been on the podcast. So we're going to have to get you some sort of blazer like you get on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, I want that. I want an OnStage Colorado blazer. Yes, please.
Yeah. I don't even have a OnStage Colorado sticker. So we'll have to get going on swag someday. So.
Commence the swag making.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I know. I was trying to think what would it be? Like a hat? I mean, I don't know. A trucker hat, a sticker, I don't know.
I think it should be a sweatshirt.
A
sweatshirt. Yes. Because a blanket you can't wear in public. I mean, some people could, but I'm not wearing blankets in public.
Yeah.
And that would be perfect for when you are at the theater and because it gets a little chilly in there sometimes. So you want to bring a jacket that's very light that you can throw on. We've got a hoodie with OnStage Colorado. There we go.
Okay, OnStage Colorado hoodie. Yes, please.
Okay. Well, still a few more ads to be able to afford a bunch of hoodies. So
fair enough. We'll table the swag talk for now.
Okay.
But on this episode of the podcast, we will be talking about a variety of subjects, including all the shows we've seen, including the 9 Betty has seen, which is amazing. Also some piping hot news from around the state, as well as local theaters' upcoming local lab, and some updates from the Colorado Theater Guild. And then we'll round out the episode with Alex and I talking through our top 10 Colorado headliners.
I've been in the news business a long time. I've never heard any news referred to as piping hot. But I like it.
I would say that the stuff going on in the Springs it's piping hot.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that in just a second.
Yeah,
sure.
That's right. I guess I'm mixing metaphors here. Piping hot tea, hot off the presses.
Piping hot off the presses.
That's right. Oh my God. Since you are our guest, Betty, I will let you kick off our conversation of shows that we have seen recently with you. So what are those 9 shows that you've seen?
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, so first up, and I actually just posted about this yesterday, so I'm looking at my phone because I'm like, I don't want to miss anybody. Ken Lidwig's Baskerville, where I saw you, Toni. And I think, Alex, I saw you as well, but we didn't get to chat much. A Sherlock Holmes mystery at Lone Tree Art Center. Then I was a celebrity speller on the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee with Family Theater Company, where I got to spell really complex words like blind. Blind, B-L-I-N-D. Then I went to New York to the Majestic Theater to see Gypsy, my opportunity to see Audra McDonald live for the first time. Then Wine in the Wilderness at Classic Stage Company, also in New York, where LaShawns had her directing debut. And Olivia Washington, perhaps you know her father, Denzel, was the lead. And then I saw The Wiz opening night at the Buell this past Tuesday. Downstate, masterfully directed by Christy Montour Larson at Curious. Then I saw Eurydice at UNC, directed by a college student who is a senior who's graduating. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime at the Aurora Fox. And then yesterday, I got a little dance in and saw Third Law's show at the Dairy, with music by the incredible Janet Vader. So yeah, that's what I got to see, and then more shows to come this week.
Wow, that's cool. That is quite an impressive slate of Colorado and New York shows that you got to. Any highlights from those? Anything you want to spotlight or dig deeper into?
There's so many highlights. Let's see. I'll start with the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. I've seen that show before. I will say that family had more heart than many of the shows I've ever seen. And there was just a lot of beautiful singing and really, really funny and goofy comedy, which I think makes Spelling Bee work. If you have that mix of like the sharp comedy, but also the goofy and heartfelt comedy, they had that. The Wiz, I am still thinking about some of the technical aspects of that show, as well as the incredibly gorgeous vocals and just the revamping of the show. I know it from the movie, as many of us do. It was really interesting seeing a more modern take on The Wiz. So definitely recommend people getting to go see that. You can't see Downstate. It just closed yesterday, but wow, what a tour de force performance, script, ensemble. It was really beautiful, technical, just really gorgeous. I really enjoyed the Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, and just huge shout out to Rich, man. Like, he directed the mess out of that show.
He did, yeah. Rich Cowden.
It was so beautifully physicalized. I got to see it with the understudy. I didn't get to see River because Saturday was the one show that River wasn't getting to do, and that was the one show I was going to see. And Gabe did a beautiful job. The whole cast was filled with people I don't know, as well as some I do. Shout out to Jess Austin for bringing that mom to life in such a beautifully realized way. But the entire cast was filled with people that I'm like, I don't know all of y'all, but I want to. So that was great. Third Law is always amazing if you want to go see dance. And we're not talking as much, because it's Colorado, but Gypsy is well worth the price of admission. I've never particularly liked that show. I've never understood why it's a classic. And I have to say that watching that performance, I understand why that show is a classic and why people do love it. And Wine in the Wilderness, I mean, you just never get to see Alice Childress. So what a gift to be able to see one of our great American Black playwrights just shining in such gorgeousness by the LaShawne's directed production. So yeah, I mean, I love what I got to see. I've been seeing some really great theater, and I'm really excited about that. And it's a great way to go into spring, seeing so much, wonderful things. If you're going to not be outside in the gorgeousness of Colorado, then it's worth it to be inside seeing something phenomenal.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. So, well, Toni and I were both at the Wiz. We were kind of lukewarm on it.
Tell me more.
Well, yeah. Somebody was commenting on our review because I was talking. They thought we kind of missed the mark, but yeah, we thought it was. Well, of course, on opening night there were a lot of
I was
technical
there opening,
problems.
so we saw the same show. Yes, but
Okay,
the technical problems aren't I don't blame that on the production. So I didn't. I mean, it was a pain, and yes, the Buell always has some sound issues, which I'm like, y'all, fix that. You're the biggest. Come on. But again, I don't blame the production for that. That's me. I still really enjoyed the production, but y'all did not get down with the gorgeous costumes and the incredible lighting and the vocals. They just didn't touch your soul.
Oh no, it wasn't that. It was, it was other things like, we didn't think the set was all that impressive or the costumes in some ways. So some of the costumes were not great. Like the lion's costume was kind of cheap, and I don't know what else.
I didn't think the 10-man's costume was all that great either. I actually thought and I said this in the review, that the best part was definitely the performances, particularly the lead performance from the actress who was playing Dorothy. I thought that was a star-making performance. I'd love to see more from that actress, as well as the performer who played the Scarecrow, who kept performing even after he actually, like, there was a moment where I'm not sure if you caught this, but he passed out. He fell off the stage and had to come back around a little bit later. This happened in Act 2, and he just kept trying. Something clearly happened. I have no additional information from the Denver Center about what happened during that show, but I was so impressed at his ability to keep performing, and I thought he gave a really outstanding comedic performance as well. I also quite enjoyed the Wizard and Evelina. I thought they brought a lot of really incredible energy in Act 2. My problem was I thought that the show itself relied a lot on those big projections or the text screen in the background.
Sure.
And I was not a fan of that. I thought it dwarfed the performances of the actors and made a lot of the numbers that are supposed to feel very big and impactful feel small by those larger technical elements at play. And so I didn't actually find that those elements were effective in helping communicate the story. We talked quite a bit about how we really enjoyed the kind of how the wizard was portrayed, particularly in this adaptation, as being kind of a character. He's less of a sleazebag. He's way more of kind of just like, he's looking out for his people. He's kind of, as I got to interview the performer who played that, Alan Minko Jr., and he said that he was directed to play it way more as like a used car salesman.
Yes.
And I think I definitely got that. And his numbers were both funny, but also you get where this guy's coming from. He cut a deal with Evelina, but now he's accidentally realized that he's going to break that deal. So he's got to get out of town quick to kind of, and so I thought that was a really interesting portrayal of the character, but I thought that a lot of the technical elements detracted from the actors' performances rather than supported them.
That's so interesting. I really enjoyed the projections. I thought they did a really beautiful job with them. I also love the fact that they incorporated video into projections, which is what the strongest projectionists are doing these days. I very much enjoyed it. And I never felt that their performances or the scenes were small in comparison. I always thought that this is a world that is larger than life. And they are bringing part of that, like we're not in Kansas anymore, so to speak. Like I thought that's really what they were going for. So I definitely enjoyed it. And it did take me a few times to figure out what the Yellow Brick Road was. I will acknowledge that. So
me too.
And so I certainly I do think that part of perhaps y'all's experience might be colored by past experiences, and so you're expecting this to do something that you've seen before. And I feel like this was definitely trying to do something distinct than what had been done before, and so that could be part of the disconnect. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I do the sound stuff. I want to be able to like that performer who had the solo and we never got to hear it. Like even when they brought the mic out, like that made me sad, just because they were giving their all. That ensemble, every single person was here for us fully. And I felt for them that things that they should have been able to count on weren't working. But again, I don't attribute that to them. They aren't responsible. But I still really loved it. And I definitely want to see many of those performers in the future because there was so much heart, so much precision, and so much joy.
Glad you liked it. And we didn't hate it. We just thought there were some things that could have been better. And as I was telling Toni, I'd actually seen the original run on Broadway when I was a kid. So, and I'm not comparing it because I do not remember it, but I think it was at the Majestic Theater, which you were just talking about. So,
nice.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I saw The White Chip from Boulder Ensemble Theater Company on Saturday night.
Written by my friend Sean Daniels.
I didn't know you were a friend of Sean.
Oh.
So.
Hello, Sean hailed from Atlanta. Didn't y'all do your research? Come on now. He was the artistic director of Dad's Garage. And so, yes, I, as many people did, we grew up together in theater there, and then he moved away. But I'm actually going to see The White Chip, not only at Betsy, but I'm going to see it in London because it's going to London. And Sean and his beautiful daughter and his lovely wife, Veronica, are going to be there. And so the moment I saw that, I sent him a little ping and he responded immediately. And he was like, when are you going to be there? And oh my gosh, the family's going to be there at the same time. So yes, talk about The White Chip, but don't give anything away because I'm seeing it in a couple of weeks. So don't give anything away.
Okay, so at the end, what happens is no. It's an alcoholic recovery story. So in some ways, it's a familiar story, but it's done with just 3 actors. So the protagonist. So I guess it's kind of a semi-autobiographical of Sean's own experience. And it's just one of these ones where it's just one of these alcoholics where he just unbelievable amount of just lying and just self-sabotage, which is, and set by Tina Anderson was like an AA, like, I don't know if it was like, kind of like the generic AA, like church basement kind of set, which was
nice.
Great. And it's pretty funny, great performances. And overall, a good show. I enjoyed it. I didn't walk away thinking like, wow, I really, got something new out of like, because it just, like I said, it was like, it was a really interesting take on that hero's journey, if you want to call it that, of the alcoholic who, seeks to the lowest depths and then comes back and whatever. But yeah, great show.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question then, because since y'all are reviewers and we don't often as the audience get to ask the reviewers questions, but it's interesting because just now you said it was a good show, but you didn't walk away with anything new. So that's my question to you all. Can you all as audience members and reviewers not appreciate a show unless it gives you something new and different than what you've seen before? If it tells a story beautifully and everything is honest, that's not enough for y'all?
I don't know if I'd say that, but I mean, it's a comment. I mean, if there was something new, I would definitely say that, it'd be like, but as far as, I guess I do look for that, especially in a familiar story. It's like, and I guess I would say that this was told in an interesting way because it's told in almost a whimsical way, which is, not usually how that kind of material is handled, because it's very funny and kind of silly in places, just the way they're running around playing all these different characters. I don't know. What would you say to that, Toni?
I would say it's not necessarily about the new factor. It is more about how the story is told for me. I think and then from there, I'm looking to connect it. Even if it doesn't work for me, think about who the audience for that show could be, because I have to acknowledge that I just have one opinion, and that is a very subjective kind of limited point of view based off my experience. And so even if I don't like it, I kind of try to imagine whom that potential audience member for the show would be, and kind of try to use enough outside context to kind of, if it's a show that has kind of a legacy, like for instance with The Wiz, kind of bring that context in, so that even if it's like we said, I was a little bit more mixed on that specific show, kind of being like, here's who might enjoy it though. And there's a lot to appreciate here about the legacy of this specific show, and it's worth doing, and it's interesting that it's touring for the first time in 40 years. So do with that what you will. But here's some additional information about the experience that I had. And I do feel it's my responsibility as a reviewer to kind of communicate if there are technical aspects or parts about the experience getting into the theater, as there were difficulties entering The Wiz on opening night. It's my job to kind of communicate that, particularly when you're at that high price point, like the Buell. If this happens, for instance, like if I'm at the Arts Hub in Lafayette, and that's a smaller theater that is more community focused by nature, and they have to hold for 15 minutes, that's way different than if you are at the Buell and you're having to hold for 15 minutes and people have planned their whole nights around this. They've had to get babysitters to come out here, pay for parking, do all this extra work to get there. Those are the things that I consider and kind of how I weigh them.
That's interesting. And then for Alex, because just now you said, as you were contemplating my question, you said that the play was actually told with whimsy. The story was told with whimsy, which is not traditionally how recovery stories are done. For me, that comment means that Alison Watrous imbued a specific vision that you then were able to receive as an audience member, because that whimsy came, from that director's vision. So I'm interested, because I don't get to talk to a lot of people who review from the standpoint of what constitutes excellence for you all. Do you know what I mean? And the idea of, if a story is told well, but doesn't give you something new, does that diminish the excellence for you all? Or is it simply excellent because it told the story well? I think that's an interesting question from your audience, because I don't know that audience members, when they go see a show, are always looking for something new. I think they want something that transports them from their day-to-day life and allows them to fully exist inside the world of this show, or film or television.
That's true. Yeah. And, it's funny. There were a few people that also kind of not necessarily compared it, but just, comes on the heels of The River, or The Reservoir at Denver Center, which, was a similar story, but very different. But, I kind of like this one better. I think I like the white chip better, just in terms of like, I don't know. I thought it was a crisper script, I thought it was pretty effective, and I'm still working on my review for that one. So that'll be up on the site. And then I was just going to mention, finished up the White Lotus, which was which was a banger.
Everybody's talking about this. I have never watched this show, so give me a couple of reasons to like experience the show.
It's different, it really is. It's a very different vibe. It's got this fantastic soundtrack of like weird jungle noises that are, I don't even know how they do them. It's like a soundtrack like none other I've really heard. Really ominous and creepy in a lot of places. They usually get some pretty A-list, stars on it. So, this last one, I think I like the first season the best, but I don't want to get too much into it since I know everybody else is talking about. But Toni and I were talking about like, this is like water cooler TV where you have to wait a week, and we both prefer that to like having the being able to binge watch like a whole season.
I did. Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say I appreciate that as well. Like I'm a big Will Trent fan. It's a show on ABC, and lots of Atlanta actors are just tearing it up and doing great work. But I have to wait every single week, and I can tell you that the story gets deeper inside you when you're not watching it all back to back. Like we binge so many things. I really do think it's better storytelling when your brain gets to do some work in between than having no processing time and then it just keeps rolling out.
Yeah, totally. Even shows that drop as all bingeable episodes, so you can watch all of them at a time, like the recent Netflix show The Residency. I've been watching it. It's a murder mystery. It's great. It dropped all The Residents. You're right, it is The Residents.
Shonda Rhimes.
Shonda Rhimes, she makes great TV, and she has for decades. And this is another great example. Dropped all 8 episodes all at once, but I've been spacing it out over about a month because it's a mystery, and I'd much prefer to kind of give my mind time to kind of think through all the possibilities rather than just like zoom all the way through to get to the answer, because that will give me a dopamine hit or whatever. I think it's far more interesting to be able to kind of like space that out. And so I much prefer what shows like The White Lotus, The Righteous Gemstones, the upcoming The Last of Us, those shows are doing, where they're going back to that more weekly model, because it's fun to talk about these things. Isn't that one of the reasons why, I know it is for me, why you go to art or why you watch it, is because you get to talk about it. It allows you to kind of connect to a larger human experience that then you get to discuss with other people.
No, I love that you said that. And I will tell you, in New York, literally standing in line in a coffee shop, there were people talking about The White Lotus, and it's been everywhere. It's all around me. And then I can't tell you how many friends have posted about, I haven't watched it, stop talking. I don't know anything, so I'm blissfully ignorant of it all. But I agree, there is something wonderful about art, not just being something for us to consume as individuals, but for us to be able to consume as part of a cultural community. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. That's water cooler TV like it used to be back in the day. So Toni, you want to kick off the other shows that you saw?
Sure. This weekend, I also checked out a new immersive work, Inheritance Kitchen. It's by a bunch of different local collaborators. Oh, you saw that production as well?
I saw that. Yeah, I saw it as a part of a test audience. So that was right before Hounds of Baskerville. So yes.
Yeah, so it's produced by the Japanese art network Opia House, artist James Brunt, and Franzo Gilkey II.
Franzo.
They're all Colorado folks, and they're kind of telling these 3 different stories about communities in Colorado who all, a Japanese, a Chicano, and a Black communities who all have connections to a magical house in this 5 Points neighborhood. And their descendants are now all opening a new coffee shop kind of in the area. But when they open it, they get thrust into this magical kind of adventure. If you saw Zoto in the past, it's in that same location. It's a former dentist's office that has been converted into this, I believe it is 9 different rooms that kind of unfold in different ways to tell this interconnected story. And there's a lot of stuff that you can't do in your first time through, which I think makes it a very compelling piece of immersive work, because there's a lot that I wasn't able to do in the experience that I was intrigued by. I was like, kind of wonder what's around that other corner. Or when there was one at the cookout experience when I got taken to the tool shed and I got to have an experience cleaning that up in there. But I was kind of curious what was happening out in the main cookout section as well.
I was in the main cookout section. I didn't get to see what happened in the tool shed.
Okay. And see, that's what I think is fascinating about immersive work. And I think that's one of the strengths of the piece. I think that it is not necessarily able to transport you to some of these different locations as compellingly, but I think that's because of the limited budget. I understand that the team is fundraising to gain more capital to do this as a touring production, not only do additional productions here in Colorado, but around the country. And I think with that additional capital, where I would love to see it invested in is that kind of those additional production elements to really kind of create that truly immersive environment, because there are places where you can kind of see the seams, you can see through the seams and you can see that, oh yeah, this used to be a dentist office right here where I'm sitting right now. And I think that makes it feel very homely and intimate, but as it kind of scales up, I think those are the things that I'd love to see the team continue working on. So that was my experience there. I also did another kind of immersive event this weekend in Louisville at Rabbit Hole Games. It's a Chinese game called Ju Binchi. It's hugely popular in China. There are more Jumanji studios than there are McDonald's in China. So people are playing this at a crazy rate. It's these murder mystery games. They come in box sets, and they're kind of like D&D meets Clue, because you all get these character backstories that you read at the start of the game. And then after meeting with the kind of game master, who our group referred to as God throughout our session, you then play these characters there's been a murder committed, and you're all trying to figure it out. And you know that one person is lying to you and has committed a murder, but you don't know who it is. You have your backstory. You have the exact times everything took place. And given that, with these clues that are kind of parsed out throughout this 4-hour game session, you unravel this mystery. I found the experience really compelling. It was so much more dynamic and interesting. And I was playing this old school teacher whose son had committed suicide and was now being called because the suicide was super suspicious, and I don't think it happened. And so now I get a call that says this mystery man can explain everything. And then another murder happens in front of me. And I got really into this headspace. I was a hot-headed school teacher. I was all over the place. It was super fun. And all the other 4 people in my group also got into it. They were theater people too. And so I would definitely recommend going with your most extroverted, outgoing friends. And I think you'd have a really great time. And this studio in Louisville is the only studio in America at this point who is playing these games. So if you are interested at all in this, you have to go to Louisville. I was talking with the owners, and they've been getting a lot of tourists who are coming from around the United States to play this game.
Oh, that's fascinating. And
how long does it run?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. How long is it going?
It is running in perpetuity. It's just they have 2 different games that they offer at the moment. So I played one of them, and they're about to bust out a third one, but there are thousands of these games that exist. And so their plan is to just keep introducing new games that people can play, so that the sessions in theory are kind of never ending.
Okay. You've sold me. I want to experience it.
Let's go, Betty. I would love to go play with you. That's okay. We'll find a weekend sometime. This is going to be, it was so much fun. And then I rounded out my weekend by going up to Johnstown to see Candlelight's production of Bright Star, which I had never seen before. I was sitting at a table with a couple who travels around the state to see different productions of Bright Star. This was their 4th production of Bright Star. So I quickly got educated on everything about this musical, why they loved it, the kind of connections that they had to the folk aspects of the piece. And it's this really romantic, grand love story that's told in two different decades that cut back and forth from each other. Candlelight is known for doing these big, lavish, beautiful productions with incredible vocal work. And I'm here to say this is really no different. I thought that this was a really impressively rendered version of this tale. It hit me right in the heart. The story, kind of speaking to what we said earlier, is very predictable in terms of, I don't want to spoil it here though, in case anybody does want to go see it who hasn't seen it for the first time. But it's familiar beats if you follow any kind of like hallmarky romance kind of novel vibe about how the story unfolds. But that's not a knock. It's done so well, and the emotions are so raw and honest, particularly from the central cast member. Give me 1 second. I want to make sure I get it right. Who was playing Alice Murphy, Genesee Pierce, who she commanded the stage. She's switching back and forth between these two time periods, playing the younger and older version of herself. She goes through some really intense, traumatic experiences on stage in front of you, and her honesty and vulnerability as an actress, I thought were just really impressive and worth the drive up north to Johnstown to see the show.
Nice.
All right. What did the Bright Star experts think of the Candlelight production?
They thought that it was they agreed that it was the most expensively produced version. They also loved, because they had seen it at high school before. They had seen it at, I believe it was one of the repertory theaters. I'm blanking on which one they saw.
They didn't see it at Arvada Center a couple years ago.
And then they saw it at the Arvada Center a couple years ago. So those were the three that they had seen previously. And they thought it was the biggest production they had seen. It has a lot of cast members. They said it was the best, had some of the sharpest dancing of anywhere. And they also agreed it was the strongest Alice. They had a couple quibbles about some of the other characters who apparently they had seen done differently in other locations. And so it was interesting to hear that perspective as somebody who was new to the show. I can't say I had those same notes. I didn't actually think there was a weak link in this kind of ensemble cast, because it really is telling the story of these two different communities over the time. But it was interesting to hear that.
And who did the choreography, since you talked about how sharp it was? We know Steve Wilson directed.
Yes, so it was Stephen Wilson directing. Jalen Courtney Webb was the vocal director, and she should definitely be shouted out for the work that she did there. And the choreography was done by Tia Bloom, excuse me. A name whom I was not super familiar with, but I have to say Bloom did some really excellent work with a large number of ensemble performers.
Nice.
All right. Well, that's a nice long run up there at Candlelight, so plenty of opportunities to get up and see Bright Star if you want to check it out. Well, let's turn to some of that piping hot news you were talking about earlier, Toni, starting with the Springs.
Absolutely. Got a few things in the Springs. So we've mentioned some of the turnover in leadership recently at both the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center at Colorado College and with TheaterWorks. And TheaterWorks just announced that Max Schulman, who is a professor there and a friend of the pod who we had on to discuss his adaptation of the Henry plays recently, will take over as the company's artistic director.
Yeah.
Max is fantastic.
Yeah, I was like, wow, good choice. Instead of doing like a nationwide search, it's like you got him right there. So yeah, we had him on a podcast last year, as you said, talking about his adaptation of the Henry IV and Henry V into one show. He's been on the faculty there for 8 years. Very thoughtful and experienced theater artist. So good on TheaterWorks for that.
Yeah. So the company is also on the hunt for a new general director who will run the show with Max. So if there are any hopeful artistic leaders out there listening, submit those applications.
Yeah. And then at the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center at Colorado College, they announced their upcoming season, which kicks off in September with Miss Holmes and Ms. Watson, followed by Mary Poppins for the holiday show. And then in 2026, they'll produce Jen Silverman's The Roommate in February, March, and Alanis Morissette's musical Jagged Little Pill in April, May.
Yeah, and that production of Jagged Little Pill is the first Colorado-grown production of that show, so that's pretty notable there. That'll be cool to see what they do with that regional premiere. I think that show could really be benefited by a strong director who has a really distinct vision for that script. I thought that the touring production was a little bit weaker than how it was in New York. And so I'd be very, very curious to see what they change and how that is adapted for the local markets. But the rest of the choices are pretty safe. Those are shows that we've seen pretty regularly on Colorado stages, but solid lineup nevertheless, I think. And then they've also got their usual slate of kid shows, including a joint production with Creed Rep of Raquel's Purple Pineapple Adventure. That's going to be in October and November. And I love this. Curious George and the Golden Meatball in February and March. So that sounds like a pretty fun bunch of kid shows.
Yeah. All right. Hey, one other thing I wanted to mention is a very interesting podcast series related to theater. So it's Stephen Dubner's Freakonomics show, which has been around for years. It's always pretty fascinating. They're usually one-off topics, but this time he's digging deep into the theater biz with a 3-part series called How is Theater Still Alive? So this is mostly from the perspective of the big Broadway show. But I listened to the first episode. He follows the development of the upcoming musical 3 Summers of Lincoln, which is not up yet. And he talks to the producers who provide all the upfront money, the people who get attached to the show as writers, directors, cast. And because Freakonomics is ultimately about the bottom line, it gets them to reveal some of the actual numbers, the money involved in all of these phases. So if you're interested in how the heck, of course, I don't know what the statistic was, but most musicals fail, and so it's a huge gamble. I mean, all those things about theater are even truer with these big Broadway shows. They don't scale, they're expensive to produce. And if people aren't wowed by them, they can just, they've got to fill those seats to make them survive. So, so that one, I would definitely suggest the first episode is out, and great conversations about that one.
Cool. Great recommendation. The final thing I wanted to discuss was a story in the New York Times that you, Betty, shared on Facebook that was published March 31st that was entitled, "My Friend's Show Was Kind of Terrible. What do I say when I see them?" Can you talk a little bit about how that piece resonated for you?
It's funny. In our pre-moment, I was going to talk about it and I didn't. And I think it's hilarious that you're bringing that up. So the premise of the story is just about the writer's experience having seen a show and then have friends expect them to give them praise afterward, and whether or not they were willing to do it and what happens when you don't. And I was so intrigued by the article that I wanted to see what my friends thought of this idea of, you see a show, you have friends in it, you don't love the show. What is your responsibility in terms of providing feedback? And overwhelmingly on my thread, people erred on the side of, you don't have any right to share negativity right after seeing someone's work. After a performer has done their job, they are in a vulnerable state. They have given their all to you. It is not your job as a friend to share negatives in that moment. Most people on my thread said, if it's a real friend, you can have that conversation another time, not at the theater. But I also had some people who were very much on the other side of the coin. And they said, if you're a real friend, you can absolutely tell me what I was doing that was lacking. And if I am so sensitive that I'm not able to receive that feedback, then what does that say about me? And what does that say about my desire to be an incredible craftsperson? So it was a really fascinating thread. I had no idea so many people would respond, and I had private responses, which obviously I won't share publicly. But I loved the article. I loved that it gets us thinking, and I have always believed that I do see the theater as a sacred space. So I won't desecrate that sacred space. I won't talk about the negatives in that sacred space. I will talk about those negatives outside of that sacred space, but not in that theater, not where people can mishear or hear just a portion and not understand the full context of my words. But in general, my friends and I, we have if they want to know, they ask. And I'm not going to tell them, if they didn't ask, because I don't feel like I have a right to do that. And I know personally, right after seeing a show, I don't want someone coming up to me saying, you've been better. Like, I really don't want that right after a show, but I do want to hear what people think of my show. Certainly as a director in particular, I really want to hear what people have to say about my show. And like Toni and I get to have these great conversations where I get to go deep in terms of asking questions about the feedback. So I think for me, I wish we lived in a world where people could share both positive and negative criticisms and answer the follow-up questions. Because just like with you, Alex, when you said earlier it wasn't new and I asked you a question, you actually came back with something that was even more revealing and exciting than what you had originally said. And I think that part of the challenge is that people don't ask questions about the feedback. They simply get in their feelings first and kind of shut down. But I think if we could have dialogue, it would be better for everyone. But I mean, that's kind of me. I want everyone to talk about almost everything.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, our conversation about the Wiz earlier was really great because we don't often get to, I don't get nearly as much comments on the website as I wish we did. People pushing back and saying, I'm happy to hear, I'm an old newspaper editor. I'm okay with people telling me I'm an idiot, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, maybe that wasn't the smartest thing I ever wrote or whatever. But, that article resonated for me because as reviewers who also friends with a lot of the theater people, it can be a little awkward sometimes. It's a different kind of thing, but similar.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is I will give Mark Perlow's comment, Mark Reagan's comment, and I totally agree with it, which is when you've been in the business for a while, when you see your friends afterward, the last thing you actually want to discuss is the play. You actually want to catch up with them as human beings. And that's what I do. I'm like so glad just to see you that I want to talk about you. And it's almost as if I don't even know I just did a show, but I'm like so happy to see you that I'm like, oh my God, Toni, how you doing? What's going on? And that's really what I want. I want to catch up with people I care about. The show is great and the work is there and I'm happy to talk about it. But my first thought really is just the joy of seeing people I love who just experienced something that I did.
Yeah, I love that section in the piece where it was like, honesty is maybe not always the best policy right after. It's like, eventually, down the line, if they ask, if you have that kind of relationship, absolutely, you feel comfortable to share. But like right after, really? Like, if I totally feel that as like somebody who has to review something down the line later, if I don't like something, I'm not going to say it right there. I'm not going to maybe stay after. I won't necessarily rub it in and be like, ugh, I hated that. And I'm now going to stick around and have bad vibes the whole time and rain on your parade. No, that's for a different day. And yeah, so as like a reviewer, I'm not ever going to say anything that I wouldn't say to someone's face. Right. So
yeah, I will
say, which I think is important.
That artists do, though, become part of the problem. And my husband loves to tell this story that we went to see a show, which I will not name, and I did not enjoy it. And I was fine not enjoying it, living in my own life. And an artist who I did not know, but who knew of me, came up to me and spoke, and I was very polite. But then that artist asked me right then and there what I thought. And according to my husband, because I don't have much memory of this, he says I eviscerated the performer. Of course, I did not eviscerate anyone, but I think I just said what I had to say. You know what I mean? Like they asked, and I think I told them very quickly, very simply. But he tells that story, and I'm like, well, if you ask me and you put me on the spot, then that's on you, right? I didn't come up and volunteer it. You accosted me. So I do think artists have some responsibility in terms of if you don't go up to people searching for praise, you can just go up to people and say hello and be grateful that they're there, say thank you for coming, but don't ask the question if you don't actually want to hear the response, because you don't know how your work, how anybody, you don't know how it impacts people. So I just say artists, use a little caution before you ask that question in a public space.
Good advice. All right. Well, let's move on. So the reason we originally asked you on, Betty, was to talk about some of the things that you are an expert in, starting with the Colorado Theater Guild. So there's some things going on. So you've got the Unified Editions, May 4th through 5th. And this is the second year or the third year?
The third year.
This is our third.
Okay. Can you explain what it is and how it's worked in the past?
Yeah. So what it is it's a combined audition. Actors ordinarily have to go to every single different theater they want to work for to audition. And what the Unifieds does is it gives you an opportunity to be seen by a multitude of theaters at once. One audition to rule them all, so to speak. And so you do your one audition. And because of that, every theater that is there physically and every theater that watches the video superbly done by Ray Bailey, then is able to see it, go back and watch your work again, and then say, ooh, you know what? I'd love to bring that performer in to read or to do a callback for a particular show. So that's the purpose of the Unifieds. And our goal is not only to expose incredible talent to producers, but of course to also give that talent the opportunity to use one audition to get their foothold in a multitude of spaces, especially if you are a Boulder actor, you could be seen by someone in Creed. If you are a Denver actor, you could be seen by someone in the Springs. And so you get exposed to work that you might not ever get a chance to based on just where you naturally go to audition.
That's great. And how many people typically participate in the auditions?
So on the acting side, see, I did not bring those numbers. You all ask those questions and you don't tell me in advance so I can have those numbers. But over 200 performers are seen, which is great. And the incredible Steve Wilson is right now putting actors in slots as we speak. And actors will be getting notified tomorrow and the next day of this throughout this week about their getting in. And then we go back and forth in terms of theater companies. So we've had like as many as like 60 theater companies. We've had as like little as like 40 theater companies. One of the challenges, though, is that with our busy world, theater companies are like, oh, wait, I can see all of these performers in the comfort of my own home on video. Well, then I'll do that and then just do all the work that I have to do for my theater company during the day on the audition. So that's one of the challenges. And we certainly have received that feedback from actors of going, but I want all the, theater producers in the room. And I hear them and I want that for them. But we certainly can't tell people what's the best use of their time.
That's great.
And so this year, the Unified auditions are being held Sunday, May 4th and Monday, May 5th at the Aurora Fox Art Center, in Aurora, obviously. We've already passed the actor deadline for submission, which was back in March, so people can't submit anymore. It's just you're about to do the thing, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, I would say two things. There are openings for companies. So producers are welcome to sign up. They can sign up through, May 4th. And also this year we are having freelance directors. As long as they have legitimate ties to other theater companies, they're allowed to watch, which is a real gift for actors because so many theaters hire so many different directors. It's a great opportunity for directors to see you and then maybe get on their radar. You might be a performer they've never seen before, and now they're putting you down and saying, we need to see this person for the show that I'm directing this season.
Which I think is a super smart change to the system because, you want to have folks like Kenny Moten in the room, for example, freelance director who does work all across the state as well as in other states as well. And you want that guy in the room. You want him to be able to see these actors and actors to be seen by folks like Kenny and the other myriad of very talented freelance directors that are working in Colorado.
Exactly. So one of the things that we'll be doing in the next couple of weeks is just knocking on some doors of some theaters to say, hey, just in case you didn't get the email originally, we'd love for you all to be there, and actors want to have you there. And I can tell you just a little bit of data points. We have a lot of people who are new to Colorado who are in the mix. And so I think it's exciting that performers get to town and they're hearing about this opportunity, and it gives them a chance to begin to get established here in the Colorado theater community.
That's great. This is kind of a bigger question, but I wanted to ask you, from your point of view as the president of the Colorado Theater Guild, we're 5 years out from the pandemic that kicked the shit out of every theater. What do you think of the state of the theater scene for Colorado right now?
That's a great question, Alex. I would say that it is a mixed bag. We are seeing tremendous strides in terms of theaters that are succeeding and getting audience members back in. We are still not yet at our 2019 high of audience members, which was like the banner year for theater. And who will never know what would have happened in 2020 if this pandemic hadn't come in and changed the world. So we are getting audience members back. That is exciting. More theater companies are starting. So we have lots of new theater companies who are still getting in the mix and are drawing new audience members. That's exciting. The other side is also true. We have less federal funding. There is a very real fear of what is happening thanks to what's happening in our upper echelon of the political chain, and that there is a very real fear that the NEA will be cut in the coming months. And if that happens, there are theaters that will 100% not survive this year. So there is fear based on losing grants. And there are lots of questions that all the theaters are doing in terms of how do we reach new audiences? How do we reach audience members who are under the age of 60? How do we bring in new people? How do we have diverse audiences and diversity in terms of socioeconomic, age, and race and ethnicity, which I think are great questions to ask. And theaters are wrangling with it in different ways. But I think if you take the past few months just as a microcosm, there's a banner year happening here in Colorado theater once again. And so our theaters are bringing forth some incredible offerings, and many audience members are coming here and excited about that work. I think as for like both from the CTG standpoint and from OnStage Colorado, we still have to answer the question of how do we let the public that knows about The Wiz know about all the other incredible theater in Colorado. I cannot tell you how often I talk to people and they say, oh, you mean the Denver Center? Oh, you mean the Buell? And that's all they know. And then when I say, no, I'm also talking about Curious, I'm also talking about the Aurora Fox, I'm also talking about Bob Lou, they have no idea that these theaters exist. People who love musicals don't know Candlelight exists, right? People who love really edgy plays and go to New York don't know about Curious, don't know about Betsy, don't know about local theater company. So that's still one of our big challenges.
I was just talking with Lauren Click, who is Boulder's arts and culture manager over there. They are working on the Boulder Arts Blueprint, which I've got a story about coming out in Denver Westward this week. And Lauren was talking about how the biggest response, the biggest barrier that people still face to going to an arts or cultural activity, it's not cost, it's not location, it's information about the thing itself, which as like a journalist frustrates me it frustrates me so much to hear that access to information about the events is still the biggest barrier. And that's you can say that's an isolated case study in Boulder, but it sounds like, Betty, you're hearing that from around the state. Exactly.
No, it's true. It's not just around the state. I mean, nationally, this is a problem. The Denver Post doesn't do what it did 15 years ago, right? We don't live in New York where you have the New York Times telling you about the critic's pick, telling you to go see Wine in the Wilderness right before it got extended. Like that kind of infrastructure barely exists anywhere else in the country. And so if you think about somebody comes to Colorado, they just move here, where do they go and how do they find out about it? How do they find out about coloradotheaterguild.org? How do they find out about OnStage Colorado, right? .org? That's the question. And we're talking about just for regular citizens, how do they find out? And I think most people find out things by television commercials, which is why they know about The Wiz. Well, I don't think Bob Lou is able to have commercials, right? Telling people about their next show. So that's still the question of how do we get the word out, even though Colorado is in the top 2 for people going to see artistic venues. They still don't all know about theater.
Yep. Well, we're doing our best here at OnStage Colorado. I'm still always trying to work on our search engine, optimization to get past some of these other sites. And we've been around for a while now. So it's it's a good place, and CTG is also a website, has a lot of information on it as well. But it takes money to really expand it. So. Following from that, I want to ask Betty, are there any new initiatives in 2025 that CTG is working on, whether it's helping promote theaters or anything else?
There are. I don't know. I'm thinking, can I talk about any of these today? I think the one thing I can talk about, and I won't have a lot of details, but it is something that community members continue to reach out to the Colorado Theater Guild and to me personally and say, there are theater makers and certain theaters where they are still not safe. I continue to hear this. And so one of the things that we are looking at as the Guild is what can we do in terms of on our website, when you post an audition, you have to check whether or not you use the community standards for theater. And so that is a first step, which is a good step. But it doesn't tell you which aspect of the standards that theater is using. So are they saying, yes, I use these standards because I have a conflict resolution path? Are they saying, yes, I use the standards because if there is any intimacy, there will indeed be an intimacy choreographer or director in the room? Am I using this because I do believe in creating safety for people who are of different races or are transgendered? So when you check that block, we don't actually know what you mean when you say you're using them. And so we are looking into how can we create a framework where the theaters have to identify exactly what it means when they say they are checking this off, so that performers who are auditioning, designers who are working there actually know what the theater is claiming to do, versus this blanket idea of us presuming because you check that box, you are actually fully invested in the safety of everyone who works in your theater. So more news on that in the future. We're trying to figure out what's the best way to do that, but know that the community has been very clear in saying Colorado, though better than it once was, is still not a fully safe place for theater people. And we want to do more to help it become better.
Great. Worthy effort for sure.
Yeah, so now let's jump over. We're just going to change topics. No segue here. We don't believe in that here on the OnStage Colorado podcast. We're just going to change topics. We're going to talk about your other role. You're the co-artistic director over at Boulder's local theater company. And you've got the 14th annual local lab coming up, which is the company's commitment to new play development. It's the actors and the playwrights come together about a week before, and then there is 3 days of events. This year, that's happening in North Boulder, largely at the Nomad Playhouse, though not exclusively. Can you talk a little bit about the ethos of Local Lab and what folks can expect from the 3 plays in development this year?
Yeah, it's a beautiful festival of new work. And so people can come and know that they are getting in on the ground floor of the genesis, if you will, the genesis cycle of these plays. So when you go to see a show at any of the theaters we've talked about today, those plays have gone through different iterations to get to that point for production. What you're doing is you're coming in and you're among the first audiences to experience this work after a week of development, and your comments and response will help determine what happens to that production next, whether or not there's another series of rewrites, whether or not that play should ever be produced. The audience is literally there giving us real-time feedback that helps to change the course of those shows.
And you've got 3 very interesting, very different, though connected, as we've talked about in a previous conversation, through some pretty interesting overarching themes such as technology, the kind of aging, as well as like how different generations are responding to the kind of crisis of isolation that we're experiencing through these different works. And those include Batshit from Stephen Burge, which Nick Chase, who is your co-artistic director, will be directing. A Bedtime Story for Black Boys on the Moon by Corey Alston, who is returning to local theater after his 2023 pop-up lab. And you are directing that play, as you also directed that pop-up lab. And rounding out the festival is Blood-Sucking Leech by Amy Toff, and that is being directed by Diana Dresser. So can you talk a little bit about these 3 plays?
Can I? Yes, I can.
Boy, howdy.
Let's start off by talking about Batshit, written by Colorado's own Stephen J. Burge. Stephen Burge, of course, anyone who knows him, he is an incredible individual. So in terms of theater right now, he is performing in National Bohemians. I'll be seeing that later this week. Don't tell me about the show, gents. Don't tell me. But I'm going to see that later this week. So Stephen is an equity actor. He is a marketing director whiz. He is a singer. He is a writer. He is a director. And so he's a hyphenated performer. And he is someone like so many people I know who experiences some challenges in the mental health space. And what he's done is taken some of those challenges and written about them in his mostly solo show, Batshit. He talks about his act of becoming. And if you know Stephen, he is one of the most joyful and has a childlike wonder that just causes people to lean in and love him. And so he's written about his challenges. And as he describes it, it's a play about becoming sober, becoming whole, and becoming at peace with being a gay Christian. And so it's a really interesting piece. He's already rewritten it since it got to have its debut workshop in Florida with Helen Murray. And so we're just super excited to bring this to Colorado audiences to experience just the joy and magic and the pathos that lives inside our beloved friend, Stephen.
I really look forward to that. And of course, he's reading it, right?
He is the performer, though
Yes.
He would tell you he doesn't have to be, but he is. He most certainly is. Yes.
And it's a mostly one-person play.
Yes, he has created a character that existed in the original development of a character called Siri. We all know Siri, hey Siri, don't ask her because she'll respond. But he's put her in, and he has said that he wants to do more with that character than in the first iteration. So more to come on what happens with Siri. The casting is going to be really great. I'm going to leave that for you because we haven't broadcasted yet. So, but I'll just say the actress who's playing Siri is pretty great, and she sings as well as has the ability to play instruments. So who knows how that tidbit might make it into the workshop? I don't even know yet, but who knows?
All right. What about the next one from Corey Alston, A Bedtime Story for Black Boys on the Moon? You know this one really well since you're directing it.
I do. It is a gorgeous piece. It takes a young teen black man or black boy, and he lives on the moon, and there's nobody else there. So he interacts with inanimate objects like the radio, like a plant, and video games. And it takes you through his journey, and it goes into some really dark places. And if you remember what it's like when you lived in isolation and didn't really have contact with other people, you can understand that. And then it takes us through some interesting journeys and brings us to a different place. There is gospel music involved. There are some incredible actors bringing this story to life, and I am thrilled to have Colorado audiences experience the poetry and the magic that Corey Alston has whenever he writes.
And then rounding out the festival is a piece by Amy Toff, Blood-Sucking Leech, about a mother and daughter and how their relationship is complicated after some kind of cyber scam. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's interesting that it really starts off as a play within a play, because a playwright is the lead character and she's writing a play. While we're watching the play, she's writing it, right? And the play happens to be about the relationship that she has with her mother and her mother's experiences as she ages, as she deals with catfish scams, as she deals with what do you do with your money and how do you deal with the leeches who are trying to take your money from you. I think it's a story that has been told in the sense that we know that older people can be preyed upon by others. We know that, but it takes on some really interesting dynamics within the confines of this mother-daughter story. And Amy had the brilliance to allow two actors play one character and then have two other actors play multiple characters. And that's going to be an awful lot of fun for audiences to experience that even in a reading.
That sounds great.
And that's also packed with, every single show is packed with some of Colorado's favorite people. I can actually say that. And I'm not going to say who yet because we haven't done, all the marketing hasn't released who's in everything, but we have some great performers that I am so excited to watch their work again and so excited for all of you to get to see them in action.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the festival. I'll be there all 3 days. So obviously, I will come back and report on the experience on the podcast. So listeners, you can look forward to that. Alex, are you going to be there as well?
Yeah, for sure. And so I just wanted to also mention, in addition to the play readings, there's all kinds of workshops and parties and stuff like that, which you can find all about at localtheaterco.org, all that stuff.
Yeah, and if you can't come to all three, which we understand, it's a better time if you come to the entire festival like Alex and Toni will. But if you can only come to one or two, please know that you are welcome to do that. And individual tickets are indeed on sale.
Awesome. Well, we could honestly go on with you for hours, Betty. There's so many topics that we could talk about in the Colorado theater community. You are a subject matter expert on all those things, in addition to being an expert facilitator, actor, director, which we didn't even really dive into on this episode. So I guess we'll have to have you back on for a sixth time on the podcast sometime soon.
I love that. Thank you all. I always have a great time, and I really appreciate the care and consideration that you all bring in to the topics that allow us to go into all kinds of really beautiful and crazy places.
Great. Thanks so much for being on again. Betty, we'll see you out there.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
So now we are going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. And when we return, Alex and I will share our top 10 Colorado headliners.
Really?
Support for OnStage Colorado also comes from the Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, whose production of The White Ship runs April 10th through May 4th at the Boulder Dairy Center. Straight from its critically acclaimed run off Broadway, The White Ship is the true story of one man's journey from alcoholism to recovery in a play the New York Times described as laugh-out-loud funny and gasp-inducing self-inflicted tragedy. Tickets at betc.org. OnStage Colorado is brought to you by the Town Hall Arts Center, presenting Once, March 28th through April 27th. Featuring all the captivating music from the Oscar-winning movie musical of the same name, Once features a cast of multi-talented actors and musicians who will invite audiences into a magical world powered by creativity, passion, hope, and song. Tickets at townhallartscenter.org. OnStage Colorado is brought to you in part by the Arvada Center, presenting A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder running through May 11th. When charming and cunning Monty Navarro discovers he's in line for an earldom in the aristocratic Dicewith family, he speeds up the line of succession through any means necessary, all while juggling his mistress, his fiancée, his reputation, and an increasing body count that's raising suspicions of the law. Tickets at arvadacenter.org. OnStage Colorado is supported by Vintage Theater Productions, with Leap of Faith season tickets now on sale for Vintage's 25th anniversary season. Show titles will be announced on May 4th, and through April 15th, you can get 9 tickets to the 25th anniversary season for just $129. That's just $14.35 per ticket. Season ticket subscribers get lots of perks, including no fees and incredible flexibility in scheduling those 9 tickets across the season in the way that works best for you. Take the leap at vintagetheater.org. All right, we are back and ready to hit this week's Colorado headliners. So these are some of the upcoming shows we think you should know about, and in no particular order. Toni, you want to kick it off?
Sure thing. I am kicking us off with Pippin. This is taking place at Fort Lewis College in Durango. It actually opened this past weekend, April 11th, but you still have one more weekend to check it out as it runs through the 19th. And this is a musical written by Stephen Schwartz that tells the story of one young man's journey to be extraordinary. And it's a very magical, whimsical journey. And in the end, Pippin finds that happiness lies not in extraordinary endeavors, but in the unextraordinary moments that happen every day.
All right. Cool. My first one is from Windsor Community Playhouse. It's doing a show called Happily Ever After. It's up now and it runs through April 27th. So sounds kind of interesting. It's a fairy tale thing, but there's apparently there's like marriage counselors. So they're joining your favorite fairy tale characters that experience the issues couples have in reality. So that sounds like an interesting take on some fairy tale stories. So again, it's at Windsor Community Playhouse.
Cool. My next headliner is a pop-up production that's being produced at Buntport Theater in Denver by the Agenda Theater Company. They are an LGBTQ plus theater troupe in the Denver metro area, and they have got the world premiere of a new play, Seams, running through April 26th in the space. And this is a play that explores what secrets lie within the seams of our lives and what threads connect them and what will unravel. So it weaves together the lives of these characters, Samson, Gertrude, Melaine, Adam, and Malcolm, in a play that's exploring love, identity, and the intricate tapestry of human connection. So I'm going to try to check this one out as well. It sounds like there's not a ton of information available about the actual plot or show itself, but I'm curious in this playwright.
I'm not familiar with Agenda Theater. Are they new?
They're pretty new, yeah. They've mostly produced kind of more burlesque style kind of variety shows. They've done a lot of work at Chaos Bloom, but yeah, they produce. This is one of their first forays into producing new, original, locally grown work.
Okay, cool. My next one's Little Women, a very familiar title, but this one's at Main Street Live in Trinidad, so way down south in Colorado, April 18th through 27th, based on the book Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Follows the sisters, Joe, Meg, Beth, and Amy March, Joe's trying to sell her book for publications. The publishers aren't interested, and then I don't know. I don't know that story. I've never seen Little Women. I've never read the book, so. I know.
Are you serious?
I know.
Never seen Little Women.
No.
How often it is done all around Colorado. You've never seen that. Is actually an insane.
I'm a bad person. Okay.
You're going to have to see Little Women at some point.
I will.
It's actually a lovely, heartwarming story set around Christmas time.
Okay.
And I won't spoil what happens, whether or not she sells her book, since now I know you don't actually know.
I don't. I assume she does, but
You'll have to wait and find out, and maybe drive to see this production, Alex. Well, it's a little bit of ways, but it seems like it might be a good version of it to see. So
yeah.
My next pick is for all you comedy fans out there. I've actually got a couple of comedy picks on my list this week, but the first one is Comedy Works' 25th annual New Faces competition. That is kicking off in April, so April 16th, with round 1, and it runs all the way through May 28th. And so this competition is the club's annual search to find the best in new comedy talent across the entire state. So they start with over 100 contestants who are performing their sets, and they will kind of whittle down contestants until September, when they will crown the ultimate winner of New Faces. So the past 2 years, it's actually been won by the same dude, Elin Striblin. He's won back-to-back, which is very rare, though not uncommon. It has happened before, but I hear Elin is sitting out this competition this year. So there's the former winner is not competing. So it should really be interesting to see who wins.
It's funny. I would think a New Faces competition would, by definition, would not allow someone to win twice, since they're no longer a new face.
It's a great point, Alex. I don't have a great answer for you, but when I asked the Comedy Works people that question, they've just said that that's not really in the ethos, as long as you're still new and you're not with Comedy System has a really kind of convoluted internal ranking system for how they rank comedians. And so as long as you're not at the top level of their internal ranking system, you are still considered a new up-and-coming comic. And so it's by their own house rules, which that's a whole other can of worms we do not have time to get into right now.
All right. My next headliner is Field Trip from Control Group Productions in Denver. So this is going to be not in one particular place. It's going to be in the Colfax area. So it's a jump in, jump out tour of Colfax. Spect actors will enter Manos Sagrados to find a dance party and installation that will equip them for experimenting together on Colfax. There's a rotation that includes an audio tour, a play around businesses such as the MLK Library and the Arc Thrift Store. You'll encounter jokers at each of the sites in play and chaos. So this sounds like a lot of fun. Do you know anything about this one, Toni?
Yeah, I did it during its first session. I want to say it was in late February, early March was the first session of it. It's interesting. It's based on theater of the oppressed techniques. It's a little abstract. It's definitely going to be different though than when I first saw it, because the whole point of doing it over multiple performances was to revise it. So my experience, I thought, I kind of wish we had done more of the actual roaming around Colfax that, like you just described in that description, but we largely stayed within the actual venue itself for the majority of the performance. So maybe this time around they will actually kind of venture out on Colfax.
Sounds like it. So so this is April 26th and 27th.
And it's Control Group Productions has been doing a lot of these kind of pop-up performances in that space, because another one of my headliners is actually from them. It's Raw Groove presents Life of the Party in Aurora, April 19th. So actually, I guess ahead of your event. And this is a live performance and party series that brings together Denver's artists, dancers, DJs, and musicians, including the aforementioned Control Group Productions. And it's being hosted by an up-and-coming Denver-based fusion dance collective, Raw Group, to celebrate the creativity, resiliency, and power of art from the Black diaspora.
Okay. That sounds pretty interesting, too.
A lot of interesting stuff coming out of them.
Yeah. Zooming back to the big boy, the Denver Center, they are opening the Hot Wing King on April 25th. This runs through May 25th. So this is about the annual Hot Wang Festival in Memphis, Tennessee. It says Cordell thinks he has finally found a recipe that will land him the coveted title of Hot Wang King, and assembled a raucous team of sous chefs comprised of his beau, Dwayne, and close friends Big Charles and Esam. So it's a 4-man cooking team trying to get this thing going, and tensions boil over, and all kinds of stuff happens with somebody messing with Cordell's secret sauce. So looking forward to that one at the Denver Center.
Absolutely. I'm rounding us out with some more comedy. This time it's taking place over at Rise Comedy in Denver, April 19th. And it is Denver's Got Talent. This is a new comedy show and live podcast that happens. It features local talent that meets hilarious improv comedy. It's inspired by shows like America's Got Talent and Kill Toni. And each episode features a diverse lineup of performers who show the audience what they've got via their act. And then these judges, who are characters, they're all embodying different kind of characters, they riff and make fun of the act for the audience's enjoyment. So this is a reoccurring event that happens every third Saturday of the month. So even if you can't check it out this month, Rise Comedy has got you covered.
Always something going on at Rise Comedy. You could just wander past there in most nights of the week and find something interesting going on.
And they've got an interesting system over there. So if you buy a ticket to Denver's Got Talent, for instance, that gets you access to every show before and after that throughout the night. So you can walk in, and if you have a good time at Denver's Got Talent, you want to keep the good time rolling. As long as the next show is not sold out, you can just stay. And so you can watch a whole night of comedy for the price of just the one show.
Yeah, definitely the most affordable place to see comedy around. All right, my last headliner comes from Carbondale. Thunder River Theater Company is doing These Shining Lives. We talked about this a little bit in our spring preview show, May 2nd through 18th. So this is, it's about these women who worked in this factory where they were painting the radium on watches so that they would glow in the dark. This is back, I don't know, maybe in the 20s, 30s. I don't know. But, as part of their job, they were told to just, keep licking the brushes to keep them moist. And of course, they all got sick because it's radiation. So it's a story about these women trying to figure out how to deal with all of this. So sounds like a pretty wild story, directed by friend of the pod, Missy Moore. So that'll be at Thunder River May 2nd through 18th.
Awesome. Those are the headliners for this week. So definitely get out there and check out some of those shows. But in the meantime, what can folks read about on the site, Alex?
Yeah, well, I'll have my review of White Chip up here pretty soon. And also, I just got a review of Doubt from Springs Ensemble Theater Company from Judith Sears, our correspondent, one of our correspondents in the Springs. And I believe Alice is doing a review of Ballet Masterworks from Colorado Ballet. And then we'll be out at Little Shop of Horrors this Friday at the Denver Center, their other show, spring show. So looking forward to that. So we'll have a review of that as well.
Yeah, and just a note for listeners of the pod, we are going to be taking next week off, but we will be back in your feed with a new episode of the OnStage Colorado podcast on April 29th. And we are going to be talking about social media and whether or not it's a good investment of time for theater companies and other performance groups to invest in. We're going to be digging into, there was this fascinating article in the New York Times kind of probing that question of whether or not it's worth it for companies to invest in the online space. It included Wonderbound, which is a Denver-based dance company who is off social media. So we're going to be talking about them, social media in general, and how it affects the art that you do. So if you've got a question about social media that you want to have answered on the show, shoot us an email at info@onstagecolorado.com and we'll discuss it there. You can also shoot us any feedback, questions, concerns, or comments that you have in general about us to that same spot.
Yep. All right. And so, yeah, we're taking next week off, but I think we're going to start switching to an every other week schedule for the podcast, unless something super hot's happening that we want to talk about. And, part of it is just the time involved in producing these, along with everything else that Toni and I both do for the site and our other gigs for earning money. But we also think it'll make for a better show if we can spend a bit more time preparing and creating them. So, of our small audience, you'll just have to plan around that and make it through those dry weeks. So if you want to stay up to date what's going on in theaters and comedy venues and dance and stuff across the state, best way to do that is subscribe to the OnStage Colorado newsletter, Theater Blast, which comes out every Thursday, and you can find that link on our website.
Yeah, and if you like what we're doing here on the podcast, please consider leaving a review wherever you are listening now, and tell the other theater lovers in your life about us. It's a lot less of a commitment now to listen since we're going to be switching to bi-weekly.
Yeah. All right, well, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Alex Miller.
And I'm Toni Tresca, and we'll see you at the show.